Hello and welcome to the October 2023 Intermediate Saturday Sampler here at Close to Home in Southington. So beginning Friday, October 13th at 10 a.m., you can begin to bring in your finished September intermediate block to get this October kit free, and you will have until October 31st to do so. On the closetohomestores.com website, you will find an extensive listing of new, pre-owned, and classroom machines at excellent pricing. These are effective now until they're gone. The Southington location is now offering several Saturday classes, a quick crazy quilt and a tuffet. So sign up via our website or come on into our store. So here we are in October. We're going to be using the Creative Grid Square on Square 8-inch trim tool. I don't know if you can get a picture of this. We did use this ruler back in 2017, I do believe. We actually used the 6-inch square on square trim tool this year in January, but not the 8-inch. The 6-inch finishes at 3 and 6, and of course the 8 is going to finish at 4 and 8, and I'll show you how we're going to use this in a minute. All right, come on over to the block and the cutting instructions. So this month for October, we have lots of little pieces. We will be making a 4-inch finished square and a square. 5 of these will have a 4-patch center, and 4 of these will have a pinwheel center. With that said, come on over to the instructions for cutting. We're going to cut very carefully. The cream, we're going to cut 2 strips at 3.5, and it's going to yield 10 3.5-inch squares. Then we're going to cut 2 strips at 3 inches, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 3-inch squares, 4 of which are not going to be cut on the diagonal. So all these lines mean I've cut them on the diagonal once. Do not cut these 4. That's very important. The purple, we have 2 3-inch, and you're going to make 5 3-inch squares. The brown, you have 1 row at 3.5. That's going to be 4 3.5-inch squares cut on the diagonal ones. But a 3-inch, those 4 are not going to be cut on the diagonal. So just follow the instructions that come with the kit. Turquoise, very simple, 4 3.5s cut on the diagonal, a very long strip of 1.5, and the multi, very long strip of 1.5 as well. These will form our 4 patches, and the ones that we're not cutting are going to form the pinwheels. So let's get started. Simple enough. We'll start with the pinwheels because those are a little bit more, I wouldn't say complicated, but they have a few more steps to them. The way I'm going to have you cut your half square triangles is I'm going to have you start with these 2 3-inch squares. What we're going to do is we're going to put these together, right sides together, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way around. Then we're going to cut it on the diagonal twice, and we're going to press it to the brown, and that's going to give us enough for our pinwheel. So let's go ahead and do that and get started, and then we'll go through the ruler and how to add the triangle pieces. So this one was a little tricky, so I just want to go over it. Again, all we're going to do is go around the outsides 1/4 inch. Now, if you had the other ones, you can do all of them in succession. Cut them apart, do the next sides, all of them in succession. But I just have the one here to show you, so I'm just going to continue around in a circle or square. going to continue. I can sew right off, pivot, pivot, and come on back. All right, so each one of these is going to be sewn all the way around, 1/4 inch on every side. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to trim this on the diagonal twice, and our intersection is going to go right through our crisscross where our seams crossed in every case. So my ruler is going to go from the point to the intersection, through the intersection, out the point, or the corner. All right, and I have my, try to keep these together best you can. I have my rotating mat, so I'm just going to turn this. And again, place my, again, it doesn't have to be super, super perfect because we are trimming when we're done. Okay, so I have 4 half square triangles. Each one of these is going to get pressed toward the brown. So let's just do that real quick. And you want to be super gentle pressing these because there is a lot of bias, so please, you know, always hit your kit with that little burst of Mary Ellen's Best Press before you cut your kit apart, okay? All right, here we go. A little bit of heat. All right, so these are all going to be sewn in a half pinwheel. So they're all going to be sewn exactly the same. And the most important part, even if they're not exactly the same size, which is okay, you really want to make sure that when you line these two up to sew, that these seams lock right down into the corner. Very important, because that's what's going to give you, you can feel that they've locked together right in the right seam to seam. And when we sew down and open up, we're going to have that really nice point right here in the 1/4 inch. So take your time making your pinwheels, and when you get them both together, you're just going to sew them into a pinwheel right here. Okay, so here's the number 1 and number 2 piece. These are oversized. All right, so we're going to take those and we're going to use our 8.5 square on square trim ruler to trim all 4 of these. So get 4 of these made. Sorry. And let's see if I can explain this ruler just a tad. Is that okay? Okay. So on the ruler, we have this corner, which is our trim 2.5 piece squares, but you'll also notice that it has diagonal marks to put our pinwheel in to square that up to 2.5. So it is oversized, and that's what I'm going to show you next. But I also wanted to show you the block A1 in the white, the block A2 in the black. We're only going to be doing 4 inch, so we're stopping with that. Had I had you do an 8 inch square and a square, we would have continued with the B1 and the B2 block to create a full 8.5 half square triangle, or an 8 inch finished. So again, we're going to be using this corner where it says pieced square, and we're going to use block A1 and block A2. So let's go ahead and trim our pinwheel. So using the lines on our ruler, we're going to make sure that these dashed lines, as you can see, go right across the north, south, east, west sides, and that these lines up here are coming right out to the corner of the brown and the cream. And this one comes right out to the middle of the brown and cream, and so does this side. As long as you got those all in place, we're going to go ahead and trim 2 sides. So go ahead and set it up. Make sure you're right in the corners. Perfect. We're going to go ahead and trim this. And then we're going to flip it around. We're going to place it right back where the white lines were, right on my square, my pinwheel, making sure that my corners are now right into the corners, into the corner, and into that corner. So let me kind of maneuver this. There we go. It's got, I pressed those open, just letting you know. I'll show you the back in 2 seconds. But if you press to one side, you're going to have a really hard time because it's going to be very, very bulky right there. All right, so as you can see, I pressed that right in half. All right, so now we have our 2.5 inch square to start our square in the squares. The same thing is true with our 4 patch, because when I sewed my 1.5 inch strips together, I cut my 1.5 inch pieces. So I'll just take that, cut that 1.5 real quick, take my ruler, and you're just going to cut these into segments, and the directions tell you how many you're going to need. I believe I pressed toward the multi, and I'm lining it up with the lines going across and the top of my rulers. We're just going to take these, spin them around, lock them together, and create a 4 patch. All right, so we have 5 of those. And those are already 2.5 or finished at 2. So there's nothing further to do on that. The next step is to add the A1s. So those are the smaller, those are the 3s that we cut on the diagonal. So we have some cream, we have the purple, and that's it. And then the 3.5, we have cream, we have brown, and we have turquoise. So if you're looking at the block, the purple is the A1 round, or it started with a 3-inch square. The pinwheels, the A1 square in a square, has all the creams, and those are the 3-inch A1 squares that we started with and cut on the diagonal ones. The outside triangles, those are our 3.5s. Those are our A2s, and I'll show you on the ruler where the A2s come into play. The only trick about this is when we're doing our 4 patch, either sides get sewn on first for the A1. So we're going to do purple, purple, press, purple, purple, and press in that direction. When it comes time for the pinwheels, we're going to do cream, cream, press outwards, cream to the left, cream to the right, and again press outwards, and we're going to trim to A1. And come on back to the cutting and I'll show you that. All right, so as I said, over there we took our 4 patch. I put on my purple on either opposite sides. I pressed, and then I added the other 2 purples on either side, and I'm going to give that a press. Okay, and that again is oversized, and I'll show you how to trim that in a minute. The cream one, I did the exact same thing. I started with opposite side cream for the A1 triangles, and then I added the last 2. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 8.5 square on square, and we're going to look for the A1. Remember that little block down here that I called A1, the white? And I'm just going to line up my pinwheel inside that A1 and trim. So here's my did I call it pineapple? I'm sorry, it's a pinwheel. All right, so here's my white square. I'm going to line it up with my pinwheel. As long as it's right inside the white line, I'm good to go. So I'm going to trim, trim. The nice thing about this is it's trimmed as you go, so everything matches up. You're not going to lose any points on your square and a square. So I did these two sides. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to place the white A1 square right back around my pinwheel. Once it's there, I'm going to go ahead and trim this side. Whoops. All right, let's do the same thing for the 4 patch. Once again, I have my A1 square. I'm going to place it around my 4 patch. I'm going to trim this side and this side. Flip it around. Put my A1 right back on that 4 patch. And trim it one last time. All right, so now what these two are ready for are the B, I'm sorry, not the B, the A2 triangles. When it comes time to, put your opposite sides on the pinwheel, we have to remember one's going to be turquoise, one's going to be brown. These were our 3.5s, okay, that we cut on the diagonal. So we put the turquoise on, opposite brown, pressed it. And it doesn't matter, turquoise, brown, brown, turquoise, it doesn't matter. You got 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And again, pressed it outwards. This one was pretty easy because all we had was 4 cream that started at 3.5. And again, I did these 2 first, pressed them, added these and pressed them. So let me show you where to line up. That's kind of important. So let me take a small cream. When we're putting these triangles on, what I like to do is take the point of my triangle and put it right in the center seam of my 4 patch or my pinwheel, whatever it is. And then we can sew. That's how I line it up. All right. When it comes time for this one, I'm going to take a turquoise. This one is going to get lined up, again, pointing right at that center seam, and it's going to be sewn 1/4 inch. So again, turquoise on one side, brown on the other for the pinwheel. It's a little tricky. I think you got it. If you take your time, you'll figure it'll all come out. So we have turquoise brown and pressed again. So now that we have those sewn on, we're going to go over to the A2 trim section of our 8-inch square on square. So again, I said the A1 was in the white, the block A2 is now in the black square. So let's grab our pinwheel. We're going to place the black A2 right around the seams of our pinwheel that already have A1 on. So now we're trimming A2, and that's it for this block, honestly. We're going to do this side, we're going to turn it around, we're going to do this side, I'm going to find my block A2, put it right around the pinwheel, and I'm going to trim it one more time. Now, all right, so we can do that. We also, because we're only making these 4-inch finished and we have our little centers at 2.5, we can make another quilt, say 8-inch square, and here's my 4.5 inch. Oops, sorry. We can do the same thing with, here's all my cutting instructions, but we can do the exact same thing starting with a 4-inch square in the center, adding B1 and B2 to make it 8 inches, if that's what you want to do in another project perhaps. All right, so one last time, we're going to take our 4 patch, we're going to line it up in here, and we're going to trim. I also have this. If I wanted to trim it, I could trim it in my 4.5, but I'm going to use the A2 2 square, and I'm just going to trim that one and this one. And that's it. You're going to have 9 pieces when you are through. Oops, let's get that as close to the square as I can. All right. So when you're done, you're going to have these 4.5-inch pieces. These are all going to finish at 4. And we're just going to line them up 3 by 3 rows of 3, and we're going to sew them together. All right. The only tricky part is making sure the brown forms your points of your star in the middle. When you go to sew these together, we want to make sure that we don't cut off these sections. So when we're sewing these, what I like to do is just put a little pin through this intersection and grab a pin. Sorry. We're going to take a pin, so we don't want to cut anything off, and I'm going to put it right here through that intersection, and I'm going to poke it right through this point. All right, and I'm going to match up my corners. That's it. And then as I sew, you can put a pin right in front of it to hold it, but as I sew, I'll just pull my pin out as the needle hits that same spot, and you'll have some nice points. Well, don't look too close, but they're okay. They're okay. So starting again on Friday, October 13th, please stop in and bring your September block finished, and you can pick up your October for free. Thanks for watching.